Hey YouTube, it's Kier. I had to move to a different room to make the video in because for some reason, even though the light is the exact same color that it always is in my living room, that last video was just super fucking yellow and dark. So we're trying this in the dining room. Yay! This is a video that I've had on my mind for a little while just because I'm hoping that somewhere out there in the YouTube universe there are witches who have maybe an ancestral connection to magic and to folk magic and that kind of stuff. And maybe you guys will be able to shed some light on my personal family stories that I have had passed down to me, because I have pieces of information, but the people they're attached to are no longer here on the physical plane, so I can't really get a whole shit ton of answers on it. And, you know, it's really interesting shit, and I don't have anybody from my own family anymore to talk to about this stuff. So, I wanted to kind of talk about the magical roots that I know of in my family. My grandmother, her aunt, which would be my great-great-aunt, was a witch. That was what she called herself. She didn't really talk a whole hell of a lot about it. Let's see. Her sister is 86, and Aunt Ree was 14 years older than her. So, yeah, she'd be over 100 years old now, right? Yeah, something like that, close to it. I suck at basically anything math related. Anyway, she would have been old as shit. She died in 1997, and when I was little, I didn't really appreciate her because, to be perfectly honest, she fucking creeped me out. She did really bad, and I'm not the only person who said that. The guy that I claim as my dad, he dated my mom back in high school, and when anytime my mom brings up her aunt that's still living, which was the little sister to this aunt, he will talk about Aunt Ree and how bad she fucking creeped him out. I mean, she just had these eyes that, I don't know how to explain it except to say that when she looked at you and really stared at you, it was like she was seeing your fucking soul. And she did that shit to me all the fucking time when I was little. Now, I think I have a pretty good idea as to why she always did that to me when I was little. But at the time, I was little, and it just freaked me the fuck out. Like, when I read the story Hansel and Gretel for the first time, I'm going, this story is about my Aunt Ree. She is the wicked witch that will eat children. Like, it was that bad. I was that bad about that. But, she called herself a witch. I don't know exactly how she practiced. I got a pretty good idea of where she learned it from, but I'll get to that in a minute. But I don't know like the lineage of it. I don't know. I know that she had no qualms whatsoever against working magic against people who fucked with her. She had I don't think she was one of those people that would just do bad magic on a person. But from everything I have heard and I know, I have no doubt that if somebody fucked with her, she would use magic to get them. And, you know, we're talking, she would have been in her 40s when my grandmother was born. My grandmother is 66 years old. So, we're talking long before the Law of Three and the Wiccan Rede and all of that. My grandmother, Aunt Ree kept her practice and what she did pretty much hidden from everybody. It was one of those things where everybody in the family knew Aunt Ree was a witch and nobody talked about it. And when my grandma would try to ask her questions, she got shut down. Like, Aunt Ree would admit to being a witch and wouldn't tell her anything more than that. But my grandmother, when she was little, lived right across the street from Aunt Ree. And she would go over there all the time. And one night, or evening, she went over there, and Aunt Ree had a lot of snakes that used to be in this ditch kind of thing that was beside of her house. And when Grandma walked over there, she saw Aunt Ree and an African American woman together, and they were doing some kind of magic to make the snakes go away. And what Grandma said she saw was they were chanting something. She couldn't make out what they were saying. And then Aunt Ree and the African American woman at the same time picked up a snake and kind of, I don't know, beat it onto the ground and somehow like bashed its head in or some shit like that. But she said that, you know, they never saw another snake in that area ever again. So whatever they did, I guess it worked. I don't know who this other woman was. I don't know what kind of magic she was practicing, but I know that her and Aunt Ree worked together on more than one occasion, and Grandma remembers seeing her around for a while, and then she just kind of wasn't anymore. There was a story about when my Aunt Ree was little. She was 7 years older than my grandma's dad, and she was 14 years older than their little sister. The little sister is still alive. She lives right next to my grandmother. But my grandma's dad, he was a deadbeat, and he's dead and all that. But I guess when Aunt Ree was little, before grandma's dad was born, so she would have been like 5 or 6, she had, because she was precognitive and postcognitive, and she would have visions. And she had a vision. Really, guys? It was a big dog messing with the little dog, and the little dog getting pissed off about it. Story of my life. Anyway, she had a vision that her family in Kentucky or West Virginia, one of the two, I'm not 100% sure which, but somewhere in that area, that the people who were supposed to be taking care of her grandma, which I don't know if it was her dad's brother, her dad's sister, whatever, it was her dad's mom that she was talking about, but I don't know which sibling it was that had her, or what the situation was with that, but whoever it was that had her, they had her tied up to a bed, and they were trying to starve her to death while they were spending her money and acting like she was perfectly fine and all that to take her money. And Aunt Ree was hysterical, and she told her dad, she said, "Daddy, we gotta go get Grandma." Well, her mother it wasn't from her mother's side of the family that this came from, but it was from her dad's side of the family. Her dad had aunts who had visions, who could levitate things, all that kind of stuff. So he believed her. And this was in the middle of the night. And he told his wife, he said, "You can come with us or you can stay here, but we're going." So the three of them packed up, and this was in central Ohio, so it was at least a 2-hour drive to whether it was Kentucky or West Virginia, even to get to the border, let alone if it was deep into the state. So we're talking 2 to 6 hours, depending on where it was, drive. And he went to this family member's house, and he walks in, and they're like, "Oh, no, she's fine," and he's like, "Well, I want to see her." It was exactly what Aunt Ree had described. She was tied to the bed. She was almost starved to death. She was a fucking wreck. And they brought her home, and they took care of her until she passed away. But it was that grandmother who, she had visions. And then, I can't remember, there was also a story about some woman in the family, not Aunt Ree, but either her grandmother or one of her great aunts, that it was kind of a thing in the town that they were from, that during parties or get-togethers, she would levitate a table. And everybody in this area knew she did it. It was like a big, ha ha ha, look at what she can do kind of thing. So, like, those are the kind of stories that I've got about it. I really shy away from using the term natural witch because of the fact that I feel like everybody who is born has the potential to practice magic, has the potential. I think we have our affinities, like the things that we're good at when it comes to either having visions, being able to hear the dead, that kind of thing. My phone's ringing. It can just ring. It's probably my mother or my grandmother or whatever. Anyway. They're not gonna give it up, are they?